It is, in fact, confirmed that Caitlyn Clark will be out for the remainder of the 2025 season. She has been out since July 15th. She's missed almost 2 months of the season. She's been dealing with a groin injury that's been setting her back. She's also been dealing with other kind of twinks and kind of things that have hurt her throughout the season, and that's left her on the bench. And she did return to non contact practice. She did return to shoot around, but it was not quite enough to keep her in throughout the rest of the season. Now, the Fever only have 3 games left. They're currently 8th place in the WNBA standings, so they're just barely hanging on to a playoff spot. But as you see there, she released a statement on social media. She said, "I hope that I could get a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season." Fitz, there's been a lot of back and forth. There have been a lot of wondering from some WNBA fans and WNBA media about when Caitlyn Clark could potentially make her return. There's been, some wondering, has Caitlyn Clark, has there ever really been optimism within the building that she could come back? But the Fever are making kind of a strategic decision, a tactical advantage kind of decision to keep all of that close to the chest. They very intentionally wanted to make all of Caitlyn Clark's injury updates vague. They didn't want to have to release any information that they didn't have to release. So I do have to wonder, why now? Why make this statement now after nearly 2 months of Caitlyn Clark being on the bench? But the news of the evening in the WNBA, no Caitlyn Clark for the rest of the season. That's compounded with no Sophie Cunningham for the rest of the season, no Ari McDonald for the rest of the season, no Sydney Colson for the rest of the season. And this is a Fever team that we saw through all of their moves this past offseason. They were making a push for a championship, but that championship and all of those dreams and all of those that optimism, all of those hopes were completely riddled with injury. And so now the Fever might be finding themselves in a place where they might even miss the playoffs if the Sparks keep up to their winning ways.
Now, if I'm a Fever fan, I want them to miss the playoffs at this point. There's no point in going in. Like, get the better draft pick. And what do we say in every single sport? Go get the better draft pick, right? And I know that doesn't feel great right now, but if we're being honest, everything's going to be about the future of Caitlyn. And I think, to jump in here and make a point on this, Caroline, I feel like we need, as a collective sports society, to learn a little from this, because when Caitlyn came back and she played for that week in early July, and there was questions about, she played in the game against Connecticut and she re-injured herself. All of a sudden it was like, well, right before the All-Star game, what are they doing? And, they're about to play the New York Liberty and they need the TV ratings. Like, we put all of these other things around Caitlyn that it surprises me sometimes. At the end of the day, they should be treating Caitlyn Clark like we treat any superstar in any sport. Like, we have to presume that when she's healthy, she's going to be out there. But if she's not, don't rush her back. Don't try and create some situation. Just because you're thirsty for the attention today, you don't put her at risk. And I think that's part of what we as a society watching the W need to understand. Sometimes the conversation gets so much about what she brings to the WNBA without the conversation being about just the player. And the player here, I'm not sure should have ever come back on the court, right? Like, she looked like a shell of herself for the week that she was back, and then she gets re-injured, and all of a sudden we see this all the time. I want to see basketball players in general, W and NBA. I want to see basketball players figure out a better way to make sure they're closer to 100% before they get on the court. And I know that feels impossible, but the string of re-injuries we've seen across both of these sports is, to me, staggering, and something that we need to start adjusting the way we bring players back from.
And I think the most impactful thing that I heard, this was earlier in the season, Caitlyn Clark spoke with the media and said, "This is the first time I'm kind of starting to feel age. Like, this is the first time in my career where I can't run around and around and around and around and not get tired." She was starting to feel kind of the weight of that start to come to fruition. And I think when we look back over the past couple of years for Caitlyn Clark, like, it is not a surprise that maybe that physically started to take a toll, emotionally started to take a toll. She went through an absolute whirlwind of a college career, of getting to the national championship game, very shortly after she was the #1 overall pick. And then immediately she had to be an impact player for the Indiana Fever. And they got to the playoffs. They had an exciting season. She was rookie of the year. And then this past offseason was the first offseason in nearly 2 years where she was actually able to just take a step back and take a breather. So some of these things, both physically and emotionally, start to take a toll. So, it is a good thing. I thought at that point, it got to a certain point where Caitlyn Clark had been out for several games. She had been out for almost half of the season at one point, and I thought to myself, what's the point in rushing her back? What's the point in bringing back a less than 100% Caitlyn Clark, especially when the Fever players started to go down with more and more season ending injuries? I think for right now, everything for the Fever is just playing with house money. If the Fever are able to sneak into the playoffs at this point, if they do clinch the 8th seed, they will be playing the Minnesota Lynx. The Minnesota Lynx are the best team in the WNBA. And so if the Fever are able to pick a couple of wins in the playoffs against the Lynx, then great. And if they're not, then so be it. Their season has been derailed by injury. So many times in sports, as sports fans, whenever teams fall short of expectation, we want to rationalize it. We want to have somebody pay for that. We want to say, okay, this is what went wrong. With the Fever, it's just injuries. That's what went wrong. It's disappointing 1,000%. It's definitely not the way that Fever fans wanted the season to go, but you can at least point to saying, well, there's 4 of our starters right there that are now, on crutches or on a scooter. There's a hilarious clip out of Fever practice a couple of days ago. Cindy Colson was on crutches. Saw a couple players riding around on scooters, and that was just kind of the season and what the season has been for the Fever. The practices look like a medical supply store. Unfortunately, that's just what this Fever team is faced with, and Caitlyn Clark obviously is the biggest portion of that. Sideline her for the season, get her back 100% for next year, and capitalize on that championship window, because I think in 2026, the Fever are going to be right back in there in a championship conversation.
I love that you said championship window. I will just remind everybody, every year you have Caitlyn Clark, you are in a championship window. So this year hasn't gone the way that Indiana thought it would go, but it doesn't change the fact that next year will still be in their championship window. They'll get the opportunity to continue to add to their roster, tweak to their roster, which I think is important. And oh, by the way, through the course of a season that didn't have as much Caitlyn as everybody hoped, the W has still absolutely remained in the consciousness of the people, and it has continued to grow. So there are wins, weirdly, that come from all of this. It's obviously all better when Caitlyn is all better. I just want to see 100% or the closest we can ever get of a professional athlete. And in order to do that, if that means that she has to be put in bubble wrap until we start next season, so be it.